Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, and you are watching the CD Junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, I'm going to be talking about Texas-based singer-songwriter Christopher Cross. Yes, the very same Christopher Cross that gave us this wonderful debut album in 1979. The album with Ride Like the Wind, Never Be the Same, and Sailing. This album, he was nominated for 6 Grammys for this album. He won 5 of them. That's really an incredible feat. And as you all know, that he's just shot out of the cannon. And the first album was just this big, humongous, one of the biggest debut albums ever. And it was just kind of a commercial free fall after that, which is really sad because every album has some really good songs on it. He was continuing to release quality albums, but unfortunately, the critics were a little bit pretentious and mean-spirited, and since he was so successful with that debut album, they just kept taking pot shots at him. I think they're still doing it, but I think he's kind of turning it around. I think he's getting that respectability back. He should have had it all along. On this video, I'm going to go through his studio albums. I'm not going to include anything live. I'm not going to include his Christmas albums. I mean, look, I'm a Christmas music fan, but I don't have any Christopher Cross Christmas album. But anyway, let me tell you a little bit about Christopher Cross before I show you all that stuff. His real name is actually Christopher Geppert. Christopher Cross was the name of the band. This is sort of like one of those Alice Cooper things. Christopher Geppert was the leader of a band called Christopher Cross. One of the members, Rob Muir, I believe, he was keyboard player and co-songwriter, and he remained with Christopher Cross pretty much through most of his career up until his unfortunate death. But here's another little tidbit before I continue. The song Ride Like the Wind, that was actually sort of crafted. It came to life while the band was jamming the song 1985 by Paul McCartney and Wings, or 1985. And while jamming, they started throwing in different chords, and out came the song Ride Like the Wind. So Paul McCartney and Wings were directly responsible for the song Ride Like the Wind, a great song. But the first 4 albums were produced by Michael Omartian. Now, Michael Omartian was a slick producer. Everything he did was slick. He worked in the secular market, and he also worked in the Christian music market. Very slick and very geared towards top 40 radio. So that first album came out at the right time. It was 1979. Sure, punk had come along, but punk was not really part of mainstream music. Radio still wanted something pleasurable and fun and melodic and poppy, and Christopher Cross's music was very sophisticated. There was jazz in there, smooth jazz. There was pop. There was blues, there was rock, there was just a lot of things. And then, of course, Michael Omartian's production really made it smooth, and it sold. Now, it took Christopher Cross 4 years to come up with a follow-up album called Another Page, and by that time, everything had changed. The charts were completely different. People were looking for something different than they were in 1979, and that was an unfortunate thing. And, of course, the album didn't sell as well as the debut, and, each album sold less and less. But through those first, I think, 4 albums that were produced by Michael Omartian, it was all major label stuff, and they were really pushing that commercial pop, so he was probably appealing more to the smooth jazz or the new age people, but he was also, battling inside here to show that he was, a pop and a rock artist. I mean, if you watch Rick Beato's channel, you'll see that he focused on a whole video on the song Ride Like the Wind and the guitar solo at the end of it that's buried so down in the mix, you could barely hear that Christopher Cross is an amazing guitar player. Throughout his career, he's come up with some great stuff. He is an artist to be reckoned with, but people just go, oh, sailing. I don't understand critics. I mean, the music business is a fickle thing, so it's constantly changing, and people's moods and tastes are constantly changing as well as we all mature. But by the time of like the 90s, with like the album Window and stuff, Christopher Cross's music, he wasn't working with Michael O'Martian anymore. Like on the album Rendezvous, I think it was the first album that was produced by Christopher Cross and Rob Muir. And so the album was sort of coming back down to earth. Remember how I said he was free falling? Well, imagine the sound of the music moving away from that polished sound. It was still sounding sophisticated, but was much more earthy, much more intimate, much more acoustic. And it wasn't this glossy production that, sometimes would hurt your ears, the shimmering keyboards and stuff. And then in 2008, the Cafe Carlisle Sessions album, that was essentially sort of a acoustic jazz versions of, some of the classics from his back catalog. That's really when he had his feet back on the ground and he was able to create this music that he wanted to create. No more major labels, breathing down his neck. And also when you're not at the top of the charts and you're not having everybody peek in on you, you have much more freedom to create music that you want. And I believe that's what was happening with Christopher Cross. That's why he maintained his quality control with his songwriting. Now, before I go through the albums and play you some music, I did want to mention one particular album. 2017, he came out with an album called Take Me As I Am. This here is possibly his best album since the debut, and in fact, it's right on the same level. Now, it doesn't have a Sailing or a Ride Like the Wind, but it has some incredible songs. And this is probably the most yacht rock album he's done in years. And it's really different because what he did is he wrote choruses to songs, but instead of writing verses, they turn it into musical interplay between the musicians. So all the choruses on the album are vocal, but all the verses are instrumental. And it's a whole batch of new songs. And I have to admit, the songs are so great. And the musical interplay between all the band members is so great. You don't miss that there's no singing on the verses because the choruses make up for it. And it's really just a wonderful album. Like I said, if you're into that first album and you've been sort of on some of the other stuff along the way, this is the album you really want to get into. Take Me As I Am by Christopher Cross, an incredible album. But you know what? I think I've said all I need to say beforehand. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through his catalog. And then immediately after that, I'm going to play a medley, and the medley contains snippets of at least one song from every one of the studio albums that I talk about. Now, before I show the albums and then play you some music, I wanted to show you this. This was a poster given to me by my friend Danny, and he got this for me when he went to see him live during his 40th anniversary tour, which took place a little bit late because of COVID, but that is an incredible picture. Christopher Cross riding a flamingo. That is amazing. I'd wear that as a t-shirt. That's really fantastic. I have to get this framed, and I will put it up in my Music Hall of Fame back there. So please sit back, relax, give this a look and a listen, and I will see you on the other side. Debut album 1979, self-titled, produced by Michael O'Martian. This album features like Larry Carlton, Eric Johnson, Lenny Castro, Victor Feldman, Nicolette Larson, Don Henley, J.D. Souther, Michael McDonald. Second album produced by Michael O'Martian. Another Page came out in 1983. Features a lot of the same people, including members of Toto on this album. Every Turn of the World was 1985. Produced again by Michael O'Martian. Features a lot of the same people who've worked with him in the past. But Christine McVie's on this album. Andre Crouch, the gospel great. Back in My Mind came out in 1988. Produced by Michael O'Martian. Another, in fact, this was the last album produced by Michael O'Martian. The next album, which is Rendezvous, would be produced by Christopher Cross and his longtime keyboard player, Rob Muir, co-songwriter as well. The Pink Flamingos making another appearance on one of his albums. His next album was called Window. This was produced again by Christopher Cross and Rob Muir. And this was just a sort of a much earthier album. Walking in Avalon, produced by Christopher Cross and Rob Muir. This album was actually later on broken into two albums. One was called The Red Room and one was called Live, but this was a 2 CD set. Cafe Carlisle Sessions was acoustic, sort of almost jazzy acoustic versions of his catalog. I remember that doing really well as an import. Dr. Faith, this is getting closer to the rootsy sound, an earthy sound, coming back to earth. Some very, very good songs. Secret Ladder, same thing, getting more earthy. And just look at some of the people on this album. Michael McDonald returns, but Will Lee plays bass. Eric Johnson again, the great Jeffrey Foskett. This is an incredible album, maybe his best album since the debut, Take Me As I Am. Really an incredible release that needs to be heard. This is yacht rock at its finest, Christopher Cross at his finest. And he formed a band with a bunch of Austin musicians, and they called Fredonia. The name of the band is Fredonia, and this was the self-titled album. And it's jazzy rock, blues, and a lot of great players. It's got a horn section, keyboards. Firefly was their second album, more of the same, great blues, rock, pop, jazz, and really, really incredible players on these albums. If you want to hear sort of the best of, most of his career, you're going to want to get a compilation. This very best of is a really nice collection. And here are all the CDs, and now let's listen to some music.
And I've got such a long way to go, such a long way to go, to make it to the border of Mexico. So I ride like the wind, ride like the wind, and I will never be the same without you here. I'll live alone and hide myself behind my tears. Sailing takes me away to where I've always heard it. When you get caught between the moon and New York City, I know it's crazy, but it's true. It's alright, think we're gonna make it. Think it might work out fine this time. It's alright, think we're gonna make it. Think it might just work out, 'cause it's not too late for Laura. Left don't cry, I know she wanted that way. Hey, when you think let the tears you cry find you to the dream that's waiting to find you. 'Cause it's one more chance, use every turn of the world. That girl, she makes me sing. She gives me things that only love can bring. That girl, yeah, makes me sing. Now the years all slip away, and things are like they're gonna stay. All the roads I didn't take, they're just one more thing in the back of my mind. It could be gone in the blink of an eye. It could be gone in the blink of an eye. Isn't it time that you reach for the sky and let yourself go? She says, save your sadness for the bad times. Time is not your enemy. I'm walking in Avalon and drunk on everything. A hero in I was swept away. No one in the world but you, and I gotta find a way to make you feel the way that I do. I was if your heart's had a real rocky landing and you need some sweet understanding, I got it here, and if you'd like to receive it, just leave it to me. Everybody precious tears fall from the sky. When that race has run, despite her hue and cry, then she walked through those dance hall doors. I never saw a beauty quite like that before. All I can tell you is, well, I never saw it coming.
Well, that's it. I hope that you enjoyed this dive into the music of Christopher Cross, and I hope it inspires you to check him out. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.